You obviously, people know that you recently had a run-in after you spoke at the RNC a few weeks ago, and this is when Trump's nomination happened. Can you explain for people who may not be familiar, I think everyone is, what happened afterward when you were, what I saw was being mobbed, and we have some B-roll here.
Yeah, the interesting thing about it was that you see some people commenting online, oh, he must have wanted attention, and why would he be there? And why was he in the middle of this mob? Well, we were leaving the White House, and our hotel was right across the street from the exit.
Right.
We got to the exit, though, and we could see the mob. And we could see them chasing people down, sort of like, a hare darts out and a pack of wolves chases them. That's what the mob was. So we didn't leave.
Yeah.
The Secret Service said you should take the bus with a police escort. So we did. It took about 45 minutes, but it took us farther away from our hotel. So we had to eventually come back towards where the mob was, and so we got in an Uber, like a normal human. I'm just like any other human. I get in an Uber or a Lyft. I don't have always a fancy limousine or 10 security guards.
You take your Lyft to the Radisson. We get it.
So we got in an Uber, and we tried to get there, but the police wouldn't let us go down the last 2 blocks. We pleaded with them, and it really was a mistake on their part not to let us drive because it was unsafe to be on the street, which my wife continues to remind me it was a mistake to get out of the car. Correct. But we only had 2 blocks, and we could see at the end of the first block some policemen, so that's about 100 yards. We began walking, much to the chagrin of my wife and the other 2 ladies who didn't really want to get out of the car. I said, we can make it. It's not that far. Those were the last bit of good advice I was able to give. So we got about halfway there. There were small groups passing us. And when people say, oh, he was heckled, well, that's what the small groups did. They jeered at us and heckled. And if that's all that happened, we would have never said a thing. Sure. People yelled at us, hey, whatever. And we crossed to the other side of the street and we avoided them. And that was not a big deal. But as we got within about 20 yards of a police car with 2 or 3 policemen standing there, and some police motorcycles, I think. Right as we saw them, we were headed towards them. We were about 20 yards away. A big crowd came around the corner chanting and marching, probably 30 people in the crowd. They spotted me.
Just to be clear, hold on a second. What was that? Just to be clear, that is a crowd. 30 people is a crowd. Yeah. Three's company. 30 is a crowd. Yeah.
Right. So that 30 came towards us, and then at some point someone said, it's Rand Paul, we've got Rand Paul, we've got him trapped. Ooh. But then 30 became 60, became 90, became over 100 people. They came from every sewer in every direction. They surrounded us, and these were vile, screaming, hateful people that were basically completely surrounding us with no space between us and them. There were people throwing fluid on us that we had no idea what it was.
I can guess.
There were people, saying things and using terms to, call my wife and this and that. It was a terrible situation. Even with us standing next to the policemen, I wasn't sure that we would not be overwhelmed by the size of the crowd and the policemen. Right. I don't think the policeman knew who I was either. So I leaned over to him and said, they know who I am. I'm in Congress. You need to call for reinforcements. So he calls into his headset. I can't hear what he says, but we're still there for probably 15 minutes with the crowd becoming more and more menacing. At some point, a few more policemen show up, and they have bikes, and they use the bikes and their bodies to serve as sort of a barricade, a human barricade, to try to walk slowly, and this crowd sort of keeps pressing in.
So they had no fear. They knew these were uniformed officers, because you hear a lot of complaints going, these are ununiformed officers. No, they knew they were cops and didn't care anyway. They just wanted to hit you that much.
They were uniformed. They all had bulletproof vests on.
I did want to ask you one thing, because you just said they knew who you were. I would argue they know that you're famous. They didn't know who you were because they were chanting, say her name, say her name. These people don't even know that you were the one who authored the Justice for Breonna Taylor bill. Can you explain that to people? I was amazed that they picked you, of all folks.
Yeah, there's a certain irony to being threatened with violence by people saying, say her name, when I've actually met with the family and I've also introduced legislation. The Breonna Taylor Act gets rid of no-knock raids.
Right.
I've just never been a fan of no-knock raids. I think going in the middle of the night for marijuana or some drugs It's a threat to the police officers who often get shot, but also inside people get shot. And I think of it from my own personal perspective. If someone comes in my house after 10 o'clock, I'm not asking a lot of questions, and I'm probably shooting. Because nobody can come in. You're just not used to someone coming in your house after this is after midnight. And the
unless
thing
you're
is,
Barney Frank and it's your basement, but yes.
But anyway, so they're chanting this, and not one of them has any idea of introducing this legislation. But here's the gist of it. Black Lives Matter, the woman who's in charge of it in Louisville, was asked about this, and she said, yes, we could see fear in their eyes, but we want them to live in fear. We have to live in fear, so they should. So the goal is not changing legislation. The goal is terrorizing public officials. Yeah. And the thing is every damn one of them needs to be arrested, as far as I'm concerned. Disorderly conduct, preventing someone from going somewhere, going in a private restaurant, throwing people's food on the floor, surrounding people in a restaurant. It's all invasion of a private space, or it's publicly disorderly conduct. But here's what happened. One of the policemen that was defending us a few minutes later was punched in the face and got stitches above his eye. Yep. Do you know what the D.C. court system did with the assaulter? Released on his own recognizance. Yeah. And so I tweeted out after we found out he'd been assaulted and they released him, I tweeted, if you're looking for him, try Kenosha. Because these people...
He took the midnight train to Kenosha.
We're seeing these people, some of the same faces are in Portland, Kenosha, D.C., Louisville. How are they getting there? They're staying at the W Hotel, the Willard Hotel. The Willard Hotel might be $500 to $1,000 a night. Who's paying for them to stay in the Willard Hotel? Yeah. Who's paying for them to have air flight? Who's paying them to do this? And here's the sad truth of it. It's probably not going to be a sinister name like George Soros. It's going to be corporate America. Yeah. Corporate America is giving money to Black Lives Matter. And my guess is if we follow the money, the people who paid for the plane tickets and the hotels and the people who continue to do this is Black Lives Matter. Yeah. But people should not be giving money to a group that is then funding thuggery. If you're in favor of trying to support African Americans and success and all this for the community, give it to the United Negro College Fund, give it to the NAACP. But giving money to Black Lives Matter is giving money to promote thuggery and violence and arson and all these things happening in our cities. Yeah. And corporate America ought to be ashamed of themselves.